Why was Frenemy my favorite podcast? So I've been listening to podcasts a lot lately. I'm getting back into podcasts because I'm realizing that episodes can be review or something I'm actually liking to do, analyzing a show not for simple entertainment but to make an analyze, to make a review out of it, to actually give up the content, information, to put out content that's meaningful on a show that's meaningful, right? It's something that I'm enjoying doing, and I'm seeing podcasts and I'm saying, wow, this could be it. So I gotta be honest, I haven't watched a podcast in years, well, except one, frenemies. And frenemies is the exact subject of today's video. Frenemies was the number one podcast in my heart because, first of all, it was Ethan Klein and Trisha Paytas, right? They're two really popular characters. They're both super known on the YouTube. Even as somebody that didn't watch YouTube back in the days, I knew who she was. Even as somebody who didn't watch a lot of YouTube back in the days, I knew H3H3 podcasts. I didn't know Ethan Klein, but I knew H3H3 podcasts. So for me, they came in, I think it was more, right, these two make a video. They made a, well, I'm always talking about a personal experience, but these two I would have never pictured doing a podcast together. I love Bad Friends. I love Andrew Santiago and Bobby Lee. I love the Pride Boy podcast. The boys, they have this chemistry. Ethan and Trisha are complete opposite, right? And I think this is why we liked it. We never knew what was gonna come out of Trisha's mouth because, you know, she has no filter and she's a bit out there in a good way. I think Trisha comes from a place, and I know there's a lot of people that said, "Oh, she's manipulative, she's a liar, she's horrible," but now she's a mom. You know, you have to move on when you're. People change. Okay, she's a mom now. You can't be mad at her for things she did 10, 20 years ago. She can be held accountable. But people have to realize that now she's a different person, right? And yes, I don't think being a mom can be forgiven everything, but I do think that people change and you should give them a chance to be able to show you who they are, right? And if they didn't change, that's on them. That's not on you. That is not on you. People do change, and good for them. If they don't, well, fuck them. Fuck them. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is, right? We have also Ethan, who a lot of people don't like, but he brings in this. It's Trisha. The chemistry also is. They do really seem to care about each other. They do have each other's back. You can see. It's insane. It's completely insane. This show was phenomenal. This was the best podcast for a really simple reason. They fed off each other. They improved each other's life. Trisha was living a more libertarian lifestyle. Was living a more free. Ethan was constantly afraid of what people would think of him. He was constantly afraid of voicing opinion because he's been in the past. They've been trying to cancel him. They've been trying to push him. It sucks because Ethan, we liked him because he was being truthful. He was being this guy who would make satirical videos. He was this guy who had a podcast. We didn't care about the opinion, and then he seemed to have changed to a more commercialized brand of type of podcast, right? I'm not an expert, but this is my opinion. Then you had Trisha from Frenemies, who brought him back to his roots. It felt like the old Ethan again, and that was nice. That was phenomenal because I prefer the old Ethan over the new Ethan. I haven't watched the podcast since Frenemies, but I still believe that it's hard to say that I do think H3H3 is a good show. I do think it's a good podcast. It's not my favorite podcast though. I wouldn't be sitting there every week watching it, right? Until I actually take the time to sit down and learn the lore, because this show's been going on for years. So I couldn't follow. It's kind of funny to admit. It's kind of funny to admit because, again, when I'm making this video, sure I write down notes, right? But in some cases, the notes are not enough. I'm going on my brain to break my brain function. I got ADHD. I don't follow a straight line of thought. It's funny because, like I was saying, Ethan, the H3H3. I think knowing the lore, knowing the people in the podcast, learning their evolution, how they got here is as important as the show itself. And I just didn't want to spend the time to without making reviews. It's a lot of time. It's a long investment. It's a long investment to spend 20 hours plus 20, probably 20 days watching every single piece of content H3H3 ever made. That's just like a huge commitment, right? And I'm not afraid of commitment, but it's a huge commitment that I can't put away everything else for 20 days. I just can't. But on Frenemies, I had a chance to start from zero, right? To see two people that were complete opposite. It did seem like Ethan, it was teaching Trisha a lot of stuff he was teaching her. To be correct, Trisha was very vindictive, had a lot of vendettas against a lot of people, and in some ways, Ethan was like, "Yo, this is an asshole. You deserve to be canceled." In other ways, like, "Yo, you shouldn't react like that. This is a good way to react." And they were giving off. It was like a brother and sister thing. They ate each other. They're fighting, but then they truly raise up each other, because that's what they did. They did raise up each other. I think Trisha was a better person around Ethan, and I think Ethan was a better and happier person around Trisha. Even simple thing like Ethan was afraid to buy a car because it would look fancy. He was afraid that people would say, "Oh, he's a sellout," and she's like, "Yeah, you work hard for that money. You deserve to buy yourself a thing." You know, or when Ethan would tell again Trisha the way she felt, and how it was normal to accept that, and Ethan would Ethan is dealing with mental issue, Trisha is dealing with mental issue, and Trisha was always like not secretive about it, but she was always self-conscious about it. And Ethan is a guy who knows that he's depressive. He's on antidepressants. He's not afraid to admit it. So I think that part of being open-minded, it really helped Trisha out. The show was phenomenal because again, it was truly caring each other's. It was all two people who were growing thanks to each other. It was two people we knew, we never put together, but somehow it worked. And that concept isn't the brilliance between frenemies isn't why it worked. The brilliance between frenemies isn't why two people we love, we didn't know could be with each other, worked. It was because chemistry. It was because it was something we never expected. It was because something that eventually could have ended so many times, but it still stuck. And that's why we love it. That's why we absolutely love it.